Story 1. Son's girlfriend said, "I wish you were my father. I could have cried." Story 2. A drunk girl at a concert told me I was cute. I am still holding on to that memory 5 years later. Story 3. One of the children I cared for ran up to me, handed me a purple flower, and told me I was pretty. I pressed it and still have it almost 6 years later. Story 4. My old boss and best friend were having lunch with a client, and the subject of children came up because the client was expecting. My boss said, "If you want to know how to be a good parent, look at him. He is the best father I have ever known." Story 5. 14 years ago, a man sitting next to me on an airplane told me that I was the best conversationalist he had ever met. He pointed to his headphones and said that he never talks to anyone on flights but talked to me the whole time because I was so interesting. He gave me his business card and said he would give me a sales job immediately. It was such a powerful compliment that it changed the trajectory of my life and made me a much more confident person. Thanks, Monty, wherever you are now. Story 6. Before we dated, my boyfriend said, "I know you do not really think much of yourself, but just know you helped me become a better person." Story 7. A woman at the bar walked up to me and started talking, acting like she knew me. Having all female cousins, I knew to play along. When the person left, she said, "You gave an aura that felt safe." Since then, I have strived to be the safe person someone can come up to. It is the best compliment I have ever been given, especially now that I am a father of girls. Story 8. Back in elementary school, a boy I had a crush on needed to borrow some of my colored pencils. I was sitting by the window, and the sun was shining on my face. When I looked at him to give him the pencil, he stopped what he was doing and said that my eyes looked like snowflakes in the sun. They are silver blue. To this day, my eyes are my favorite part of myself, and I would never change anything about them. Unfortunately, I recently found out that he is now in prison for attempted murder of his child's mother. Story 9. When I was in labor after my epidural, my heart rate dropped, and the nursing team had to turn me onto all fours. One of the nurses told me I had the nicest skin she had ever seen. I will definitely never forget it. Story 10. She told me I was a man written by a woman. Still not sure if it was a blessing or a curse. I did not pick up on the hint. Edit. Thank you all for the kind words in the replies. I am going to remember this for a while. I feel grateful. Story 11. You smell like a handsome forest. Probably not the kindest compliment I have received, but certainly the most memorable. The girl was rather intoxicated, and it made me laugh. Story 12. My fiancée Kayla, a few weeks before I lost her in a car accident, was watching me while I was doing something around our small apartment. She kept smiling at me, and I asked her, "What are you smiling at, baby?" She said so sweetly, You're so beautiful." I melted. As a man, I had never received such a wonderful compliment. My face turned bright red. She always made me smile. Story 13. I appreciate you. My stepdaughter said that to me after a lengthy conversation about some matters and a much-needed hug afterwards. It doesn't take much, but it stays with you. Story 14. A nurse once said I would make a great heroin addict because my veins are very visible. Story 15. You have a great voice for radio. Oddly enough, I have received that same compliment a few times. It was random for sure, but nice to hear. Story 16. It is simple, but a boy I like told me I have nice teeth. I brush and floss twice every day now. Story 17. Someone nominated me for our local Best of the Best awards for my profession. The caption that went with it said, "The kindest person I know." I have no clue who it was. Story 18. One of my university students said, "You are so young to be our professor. You must be about 24. I am more than 10 years older than that." Story 19. Your patience is amazing. Things that would drive me into a rage just roll off your back. Bittersweet one, because I got yelled at so often I did not even notice anymore. Story 20. 20 years ago, my roommate's grandmother called me a pretty girl. I am a man, but anyhow, she called me pretty. Story 21. My best friend got married a few months ago. I traveled to her city and stayed at her house for about a week to help and support her. Her sister has a 9-year-old son, and we spent some time together. It was my first time meeting them. After I got home from the wedding, my friend told me that the little boy had said, "She breathed life into the place." I just can't forget what he said. Story 22. I was 20 years old and working the ticket counter at the Amtrak station. I was chatting with a customer from Germany who was traveling alone around the United States. It seemed like a friendly and standard conversation. I helped her with a smile, and she thanked me and walked away. 20 minutes later, she came back to my counter, handed me a small box of chocolate-covered blueberries and said, "Please tell your mother she did a wonderful job raising you," then headed off to her gate. She didn't know that I had lost my mother to a drug overdose a couple of months earlier and was absolutely devastated inside. That single compliment and interaction has stuck with me for 22 years, and I still think about that moment when I am in a dark place. Wherever you are, friendly German tourist, thank you for giving me the strength to get through all those years ago. Story 23. I have told this story several times on Reddit already. I was having beers on a restaurant patio with friends when a woman in her 60s walked by with her takeout in hand. She stopped as she passed me, looked me directly in the eyes, and said very loudly, "Excuse me, you are very handsome." I said thank you with a big grin on my face. This compliment was quite meaningful in the way it made me feel complete. Story 24. Remember that time I was mean to your daughter, and you sat me down and scared me? Thank you for that. That was the wake-up call I needed. I was struggling after my father died and hanging out with the wrong people. If you had not yelled at me like that, I would probably have ended up in prison. Story 25. Someone sat next to me during a class and said that my handwriting could be a font. This was about 8 years ago, and I am still riding that high. Story 26. "Nice shirt," said a random girl at a plaza 4 years and 3 months ago. Story 27. My ex's mother said, "I've seen you with long hair, a short bob, a long bob, and now a pixie, and you look absolutely beautiful with any hairstyle you choose." I will never forget this compliment. I hated my ex, but her mother was such a sweetheart. Story 28. When I was leaving my house for senior prom, a little girl walked by with her dad and said, "Look, Daddy, a princess." And I cried until all my makeup was gone. Story 29. My boyfriend often tells me that I am funny. He giggles at something I said and says, "You are so funny." Story 30. My wife said that she tells her coworkers that I am rough when they ask what I am like. I was like, "What do you mean rough?" She said, "Like good for an apocalypse. Like Joel from The Last of Us." That was the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Story 31. My ex and I were at Waffle House, and the waitress said, "Wow, you two look like a couple out of a soap opera." She sounded like that was a good thing. Story 32. On Thanksgiving Day, you cook like a mother and make jokes like a father. Story 33. It took me 41 years to find you, and I am never letting you go. That is what my partner said to me the day we decided we were more than friends. Since then, our lives have been full of love and mutual respect. Story 34. The girl said, "Your penis is bigger than I expected." So I married her. Story 35. A taxi driver in Russia told me I smelled nice as I was getting out of his cab. He was not hitting on me, and my own husband had not given me a personal compliment in 2 years. It was sad, but I thought about that compliment for months. Look at me. I am still writing about it 10 years later. That compliment was the tiny seed of me beginning to think of myself as an attractive person again. 10 years, 1 divorce, a huge increase in my confidence, and an astonishing second marriage to a man who thinks I am beautiful and amazing later. I still remember that a Russian taxi driver liked my perfume and gave a despairing woman a tiny lifeline that day. Story 36. Many years ago, I had a job as a trainee deck officer in the Merchant Navy. My first onboard ship assignment was a complete disaster. I joined the ship carrying a nasty virus, and as it turned out, I got violently seasick. Additionally, I often clashed with the chief mate and captain. When the time came to end my stint on that ship, I thought everyone would be glad to see me leave. During my final time at my mooring station while we tied up, the bosun and the pumpman took me aside and said they thought I would make a good officer and hoped I would return to the ship after my vacation. Coming from those two senior deckhands who had probably seen and done it all really meant a lot. Story 37. Damn. You look young. But you are not. A cashier at Speedway after checking my identification for cigarettes. Story 38. Last week at my older son's sporting event, my younger son, who is 11, stayed behind to hold the door and greeted 3 families attending the same event. Later that day, one of the fathers saw him sitting with me and came over to compliment my son on his kindness. He also praised me for raising such a kind and respectful child in a world where kindness seems to be fleeting. I know my son is a good kid, but hearing it from complete strangers always feels great. Story 39. If I were not gay, then I would probably be attracted to you, said my lesbian friend circa 2024. Story 40. An African-American gentleman told me I was one of the realest people. I am white. Story 41. At my first job, I was with my coworker in the shop when a girl approached us and asked if we could see her bra under her shirt. We were confused but told her no. She looked great. She raised her head and shouted enthusiastically, "You girls are so gorgeous." She thanked us, bought a drink, and left. She was beautiful and sounded very sincere. I still think about it 7 years later. Story 42. A female friend said she always felt safe when I was at a party. Story 43. A cashier at the grocery recently told me I have a friendly face. Story 44. Some woman the other day complimented my entire outfit and jewelry, then said I was just so put together. No one has ever said that to me, and it was the sweetest compliment I have heard in a while. Story 45. Someone told me they liked my vibe. I will never forget that because it was about my personality and not my looks or style. Story 46. A woman told me I looked like Keanu Reeves. I am pretty sure that was a compliment. Story 47. Someone said if they ever went to war, they would put a picture of me in their locket. I had never heard that before and thought it was so cute. Story 48. I was 16 years old working at 7-Eleven. During the summer, I was working some hours one morning, and the older retired lady who worked 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. during the week was there with me. Out of the blue, she said, "You know, I think you're really nice." Being a scrawny 16-year-old with low self-esteem and not used to hearing such things, this totally startled me. To this day, I feel like this was the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Story 49. I thanked my grandfather for his service in the military, and he said, "You were worth it." Story 50. My dad broke his hip, and my siblings insisted that I come and help look after him for a week. So I did. By the time I arrived, he was over the worst, and I took him home from the hospital. I drove him around, made his meals, took him places, and we had a good time together. Not long before I left, he said, "If your mum had been here, she would be very proud of you." That was his way of saying he was very proud of me too. I miss you, Dad. The other day, my child and I were talking about my ex, their mother, who is a miserable narcissist and made our lives difficult for years. They said, "Well, at least I had one parent who showed me what unconditional love was." That absolutely melted me. Story 51. She's so fancy. A kid whispered this excitedly to her mother as I walked past them. I had been feeling insecure and was working on building my confidence by wearing sophisticated, stylish, but casual clothing. I can't be a mess if I'm well put together, right? See, I'm a functional adult. Hearing her odd tone was validating. Like, yes, random kid, I am a fancy lady. Story 52. A 45-degree angle along with another 45-degree angle. Best compliments. Story 53. I was told I have a nice collarbone, and now I have a best friend. Story 54. A girl on her scooter just passing by told me I look great. Story 55. Wearing a pink bucket hat, red sweatshirt, baggy jeans, large trainers, and a crossbody bag. A woman told me I was so cute and looked like Paddington Bear. Story 56. Your eyes are like chocolate wrapped in gold. Hands down the most original compliment I have ever received about my eyes. People always tell me I have nice eyes, but hearing it said like that really touched me. Story 57. I saw some school children playing in the street, and I recognized one of them. I waved and said hello. As I walked away, I heard one of the young girls whisper, "Wow, she is so pretty." Story 58. Not exactly a compliment, but my daughter's lifelong best friend called me recently to come out. I was touched that she sought me out for that purpose and surprised that she was nervous to tell me. She has my full support, and I am very proud of her. Story 59. At work, I helped an elderly man organize the items he wanted to purchase. After the sale concluded, he said to me, "You are a good man." I was feeling very depressed at the time, so I really needed that. Story 60. You look happy and healthy. A nice comment on an Instagram picture, but I was neither of those things at the time. Story 61. I hated you. Given to me in college by a fellow actor and very good friend after my performance of a particularly evil character. Story 62. I don't know what my sister and I were talking about, but I brought up the 7 minutes after death phenomenon and she told me I would be most of her 7 minutes. For anyone who does not know what I am talking about, after you die, your brain replays the best memories of your life for 7 minutes before it completely shuts off. I could be wrong, but I am pretty sure that is what it means. Story 63. Sophomore year of high school, in Algebra 2 class, I raised my hand and walked the class through how to solve a problem. After I was done, the teacher said, "You know, I hope one day you get a job where someone pays you to think." Story 64. After a show backstage, Garth Brooks said I had a beautiful smile. Story 65. My wife and her sister, who is 8 years younger, are often asked if they are twins. My wife loves to hear it, but her sister does not. Story 66. A gorgeous black woman complimented my butt when I was in Las Vegas. I had worked hard for that butt, training multiple times a week for a year. This is one of the best compliments I have ever received, and I love that she gave it. More women need to give each other compliments. Story 67. I've gained the wrong kind of weight over the years, but I used to be into weight training in my youth. I was chatting with an obvious bodybuilder at a recent wedding, and he said, "You look very strong." That was awesome. Story 68. I am a chess player, and my style is very positional. I try to emulate the styles of players like Anatoly Karpov and Tigran Petrosian, who are known for solid defensive play. Once, I was playing in a club tournament, and a strong player was watching my game. After I won, he said, "You played like Petrosian." That made me very happy. Story 69. An old boss of mine told me, "You see the world with such a different lens, and that is why I had to hire you." Story 70. I was raking leaves at my girlfriend's house, and her 7-year-old daughter started jumping into the piles. My girlfriend scolded her for making me have to rake some of them back up. I said, "It's okay. Let her be a kid." Later, my girlfriend said, "Thank you for reminding me that I need to let my daughter be a kid." Story 71. Gas station attendant said, "Every time you come in, you always smell so good." Story 72. A man I worked with right after high school said he heard a girl laugh on a plane and thought it was me. When he was able to get up during the flight, he walked down the aisle to check. Obviously, it was not me. He said he loved my laugh and could have sworn he heard me. Story 73. Long story short, my family disagreed with my then fiancé about something, and I told my mother, "I don't know if she is doing the right thing. I don't know what the right thing is, but I know she is doing it for the right reasons, and I am going to stand behind her." My mother responded, "You are going to be a good husband." Story 74. I work many customer service jobs. One day, while out and about, a random lady approached me and said she recognized me from one of my jobs. She told me that I brightened her and her friends' days. She said they talked about me for days and how kind I was. This is the most meaningful comment I will ever hear. Story 75. For Christmas, my stepchildren put on the Christmas card they gave me, "Thank you for being our father figure for the last 10 years. Their mother and I are in the middle of a divorce. It really hit home. Story 76. I just found out from doing a deoxyribonucleic acid test that I have a half-brother. He and I have been talking almost every day. He told me that I am really sweet, down to earth, and easy to talk to. That is my new big brother, and it made my day. His wife was so happy that he found the family he never knew he had. Warm fuzzies all around. Story 77. My ex-girlfriend told me I was a great guy while breaking up. Story 78. You have a pretty face is the best compliment I have received. Honestly, I have never felt so good before. Story 79. I had a professional athlete who dated a celebrity known for her prominent figure tell me I had a nice physique. It has been downhill since. Story 80. A couple of years ago, I was helping my little cousin troubleshoot his game. After everything was sorted, he suddenly said, "When I am older, I hope to be just like you." It is something I often remember. Story 81. My coworker's 4-year-old said to me during an online meeting, "You have a nice voice." I stopped what I was talking about, which was somewhat important, and simply said thank you. Then he said in a high-pitched voice, "You're welcome." We paused briefly because he wanted to know more about his mom. I tried my best to make her sound like a cool mom, which was easy. She told him he should go hang out with her other kids so we could get back to work. Then he asked for a hug, they hugged, and we returned to the meeting. That kid made my day. Story 82. A man in the gym told me, "When I am your age, I want to look like you." Story 83. My nephew told me he wishes I were his mother. Sad, but I am also glad he could express how much I care for him. Story 84. You are an unconventional woman. A musician at a bar has been staring at me the entire time he was playing his set. Story 85. A random woman said I was cute over a decade ago, and I still remember everything about that moment. Story 86. 25 years ago, a bartender told me I was nice-looking, non-threatening, and smelled good. As everyone else says, I am still riding that compliment. Story 87. An elderly lady at an airport saw me laughing and told me I had a wonderful smile and a funny laugh. We ended up chatting for about 20 minutes while I waited for my flight. The worst part is this happened years ago, and I never got to tell her my name or learn hers. Story 88. A woman told me she liked my vibe. I had never heard that before, but I love it. Story 89. I was morbidly obese as a teenager and lost 100 pounds after a serious case of stomach flu that prevented me from keeping anything down, not even water, for 12 days. This is one of the worst methods for weight loss, and I definitely do not recommend it. I began getting attention from family members and friends for my incredible transformation, and hearing comments like, "Wow, you lost a lot of weight. You look so good now." This made me internalize the idea that I did not look good when I weighed over 250 pounds. I started to resent the new attention and flattery, even though I knew it was not meant to be malicious or underhanded. One day, I saw a friend I had not seen in almost a year. His words still make me feel happy about my body more than 10 years later, because when he saw my thinner body for the first time, he said, "Wow, you look really healthy." I will never forget the positive impact the word healthy had on me compared to words like good, great, thin, or sexy. Story 90. I was ordering a coffee from a small shop at a tourist spot. I placed my order and said thank you. When I went back to pick up my coffee, the barista said, "I just wanted to tell you that you are really beautiful. I still think about this." Story 91. I was at work one night running a register at Walmart, and a father came through my line with his 3-year-old son. I was ringing up their items when the son whispered something to his father. The father laughed and said, "Tell her, not me." I looked at the little boy and asked what was wrong, and he smiled and said, "You're pretty." When I say that what that child said made my week, I mean it. He was so sweet. I worked at another place where my sister also worked. For the record, she was a surprise baby late in my mother's life, so I was about 17 when she was born. She and I were working together one day, and one of our coworkers asked which one of us was older. I thought it was great. My sister, not so much. Story 92. A coworker said, "If you were ever in a band, I bet it would sound just like System of a Down. Best compliment ever. System of a Down rocks. So does syrup. Story 93. I've been learning sign language for a while now. My classmates are amazing. They come to class with impressive signs. I've been working hard to catch up and learn as much as I can. Eventually, some of us went to a deaf pub meet. We were talking about the class, and I said I was easily the worst in the class. One of my classmates responded instantly, "You're being daft. You're more fluent than you think and one of the best signers. Granted, your receptive skills, ability to read other people's signs, need work, but no one is perfect." That has stuck with me for a while. Story 94. One time I was in a club and a girl turned my hat around. She said I had a nice face and it should not be hidden. I will never forget that. Story 95. I introduced my twin infant sons to my 94-year-old grandmother just a few days before she passed away. She told me that I was going to be a wonderful father. I do not know whether that will be true, but I am going to try. Story 96. A little girl in the grocery store yelled, "She is so pretty." It is hands down the best compliment I have ever received. The only compliment I have ever genuinely believed, because you know children tell the truth wholeheartedly. Story 97. 8 years ago, I went to the pharmacy to pick up my medication, and the pharmacist looked up and exclaimed, "Oh wow, you look like a Disney princess." I couldn't stop looking in the mirror to see what she saw. I started feeling pretty princess-like. Story 98. I still remember the time a friend told me, "You always know how to make people feel at ease." It was during a stressful period in my life, and those words really stuck with me. It was not just a compliment. It was a reminder of something I did not even realize I was doing. Story 99. I was called an ethereal angel by a woman I was out dancing with. It remains my favorite compliment 5 years later. Story 100. In 10th grade, I was in electronics class. The teacher had just explained how a halogen bulb works. Then the teacher asked, "Okay, so why do both filaments light if the electrons go from one element to the other and only the X releases light?" The teacher went around to each student, and they fumbled with the answer. I was in the middle of the pack. Then it hit me. When the teacher got to me, I said, "Well, it's alternating current." He stopped me dead in my tracks and told me to stay quiet. Then he went around the rest of the class, and nobody had the answer. He came back to me and asked again, "It's because it's alternating current and the power reverses." He yelled, and I mean yelled, "Brilliant! You are absolutely brilliant." It was probably my proudest moment in high school in any classroom. Story 101. My spelling is really good because I knew the difference between compliment and compliment. Story 102. You are the best friend anyone could have, and everyone knows it. Story 103. I was told that I looked like David Koresh in 1993, right after the Waco incident in downtown Portland, Oregon. Story 104. I once walked into an office and wiped my feet with my shoes on the floor mat. The lady office worker stood up and said, "Not many people would do that. Your mother raised you right. Thank you." Story 105. I was visiting my grandmother in another city. When leaving, I told her I was going to stop by the XYZ store to get some balloons to take to a friend for his birthday. My sweet, wonderful grandmother said, "You always seem to be doing something nice for other people. That is quite a nice trait to have." Story 106. Two's complement is a mathematical operation on binary numbers, as well as a representation of signed integers in binary computing. It allows for the encoding of both positive and negative integers in a way that simplifies arithmetic operations. In the two's complement system, positive numbers are represented as usual in binary form, while negative numbers are represented by inverting all the bits of the absolute value of the number and then adding 1 to the least significant bit. This method ensures that addition, subtraction, and multiplication can be performed using the same binary arithmetic processes for all integers. Two's complement is widely used in computer systems for integer arithmetic because it eliminates the need for separate subtraction circuits and effectively manages overflow conditions. Story 107. 9 years ago, I was heading into a store when an older woman was walking in as well. I held the door open for her, and she smiled and said, Young man, I am old enough to be your mother, but I have to tell you, you are a very handsome and beautiful man. Ever since that day, I have been walking around with confidence, and the compliments keep coming. Just yesterday, my wife told me I look 30 years old. I am 41 years old. Story 108. Just a genuine, you are very pretty. No hidden intentions, no backhandedness. Nothing. Just that. Someone also said, you are kind. Even when others are not kind to you, you remain yourself. I admire that in you. Story 109. A girl exclaimed, holy cow, when she took my pants off for the first time. I am only a little above average, but apparently the largest she had ever seen. Story 110. One compliment I will never forget was when a friend told me I had a calming presence. It was such a simple thing, but it made me realize how much I might be helping others just by being myself. I never really thought about it before, and it stuck with me because it felt so genuine. Story 111. You look like a sunflower when you smile, said a man in the grocery store. Story 112. I helped a woman on a public transit ride get away from a creep by pretending to be her boyfriend. I sat next to her and she leaned on me, resting her head on me for the remainder of the ride, about 25 minutes. At one point, out of the blue, she told me, I smelled nice. I wasn't wearing cologne, as I was just taking transit to a game store to pick up glue. So, she liked my natural scent. I don't know why this moment has stuck with me through the years, but I remember it so clearly. It feels like watching a movie. Story 113. A little girl screamed, Mom, Mom, Mom. That lady with the pink hair is so pretty. It made my decade. Story 114. My partner told me the way I handled a dispute with my family, by being the bigger person and not stooping to their level, made him love me even more. That was over 10 years ago. Story 115. My father-in-law's friend told me after not seeing me for more than 30 years, you are still so beautiful. It was such a sweet comment from an old friend. Story 116. Two separate guys told me that they thought of me when they heard, She Moves in Her Own Way, by the Kooks. Story 117. Telling my age and hearing, Wow, you look amazing, though you were younger. Story 118. I always remember every single compliment I received. That shows how powerful they are. Story 119. A girl who I considered beautiful called me beautiful. It was the first time a girl ever called me beautiful in my life. I felt like crying that day because all my life I had felt ugly. I am a girl, by the way. She also said she loved my voice. My looks and my voice were the two things I had been insecure about my whole life, and here was a pretty girl I had just met complimenting me on those two things. It has been 2 years now, and we are still friends. Story 120. My eyes look like the eyes everyone was obsessed with drawing in 6th grade. Story 121. Some girl said she liked my red shirt. I still remember it 4 years later. Story 122. Reading through these, it is surprising how little it takes to make such a long-lasting impression on someone with a compliment. I am going to do more of it. Story 123. The college I attended, which had fewer than 500 students, had several Georgian students, referring to those from the country, not the state. There was one person I often butted heads with. We had different outlooks on the world, different ways of doing things, and often disagreed in our conversations. However, we also had mutual respect for each other. One day, in a mutual friend's dorm room, he looked directly at me and said, You are vast to me. It was the most unique and memorable thing I have ever heard anyone say about me. I still appreciate him for it. Story 124. Two female friends once told me I had amazing eyes. I didn't even realize that was something women liked in men. Story 125. I had two people in the space of a few days say I looked like Emily Blunt. It made me feel pretty. Story 126. I was previously married to a narcissistic, abusive man. As you know, they constantly brag about themselves, fishing for compliments and positive feedback or acknowledgement. It was in the final months before I found him cheating and then left. We went to Walmart with the kids one evening to buy groceries. In the checkout line, I was going to pay, so I was waiting. As usual, he was bragging about himself, telling the cashier he works 3 jobs to support our family. I Ironic, I was paying then, right? She responded, I don't believe that, giving him the feedback he wanted. A black woman behind us, whom I had not noticed come up, immediately said, well, what about your wife? She is raising your children, taking care of the home, and I bet even working a job too. You should praise this beautiful woman you have. I lost it. I cried. I know she saw me and how defeated I was, but hearing her compliment how good of a mother I was and how beautiful I am, simply standing up for me, still makes me cry to this day. As we walked away after paying, I turned to her in tears and said thank you. I don't know if she will ever know how much of an impact she had on me that day by coming to my defense and complimenting me. I pray she has had the best positive karma in her corner ever since that day. Story 127. Ketchup and mustard are more of a condiment compliment. If you allow me to compliment my condiment compliment, it is most delicious. Story 128. You perform really well. It was nice to hear. B. I was having a good day. I'm pretty average. Story 129. Remember one time when I was in my early teens on an underground train. I can't remember if I was on my way to or coming back from school. A lady from the Salvation Army was sitting opposite me and told me that I am beautiful. I will never forget that. The train carriage was full, and in front of everyone, she said she wanted to let me know that I am beautiful. Story 130. For some reason, people compliment me behind my back. They will tell one of my friends, your friend has nice eyes. I do not really know why, though. Story 131. Someone who was an acquaintance said if I were an animal, I would be a hummingbird, and I have never forgotten it. Hummingbirds are beautiful and unique to me, so I took it as very sweet. Story 132. An old colleague told me, you are the kindest person I have ever met. At a professional conference, I was networking and talked to a woman for about 20 minutes. By the end, as we were moving on, she said, I just have to say, you are so beautiful. Your skin is so radiant. Your dressing style really suits you. And you are so confident and pretty. I was shocked, flattered, and blushed. To keep myself grounded, I occasionally think about the time an 8-year-old told me, you are so ugly. Story 133. Both were from former coworkers. One gave me the biggest hug I had ever received on my last day and told me that I was the only good thing about working there and that she would miss me. The other told me on her last day that I was a ray of sunshine and, again, that she would miss me. I do not remotely believe either of those things, but I believe that they believed it, and that is good enough. Story 134. My dying father, who was deeply affected by dementia, had a lucid moment and told me that I made him proud. He used my name so he knew it was me. What a gift that was. Story 135. You have done a good job, said my supervisor. It is nice to hear that. Story 136. You are someone who can simply exist with us. We do not feel obligated to entertain when you are here. We can all sit and just be. I have trouble with conversations and expression, and this compliment healed many of my insecurities. I went home crying happy tears that day. Story 137. My film teacher told me, you are wasting your talent. Your film is technically and artistically impressive, but what happens is just so weird and crazy. Story 138. A friend told me that I exude confidence and am so put together after I confided in her about my self-esteem issues. Turns out that faking it until I make it seems to be working. Story 139. My cat once told me, meow meow meow, such heartwarming words. Story 140. A man with schizophrenia told me my voice quieted the voices in his head. I was a therapist at his treatment center. Story 141. In Key West, about to cross the street, a girl yelled, hey, are you Robert Downey Jr.? Story 142. When I was 16, a group of friends and I were talking about chest hair for some reason. I mentioned I had quite a bit and thought it was unpleasant. A very attractive girl I was somewhat friends with said, damn, I like that. That's manly, dude. I love that. 10 years later, at age 26, we ran into each other in the city where we live. We now have 2 children and are engaged. Story 143. When I was 17, I was browsing people on Omegle and came across a group of 3 girls. They immediately started complimenting me and telling me how beautiful and pretty I was. It was small, but that meant so much to me. I am 21 years old and think back to that every now and then. Story 144. My boyfriend introduced me to his friend while we were in town one night. As we were talking, his friend stopped and said, "There's something about her." We had all had a few drinks, so this was fine. My boyfriend said, "Yeah, she sparkles." I have since had 2 children and really struggled with finding myself again. What he said back then has always come to mind when I feel down. We caught up a few years ago, and I told him I remembered and cherished those words. He remembered them too. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.